welcome everybody to Grid Talk Tuesday. My name's Alexander Searle. With me soon is going to be some of our co-hosts here. Change of background for me, obviously. I'm in a hotel here in Lime Rock, Connecticut. So apologies for the different background than maybe you're used to for me. But one person that you are accustomed to seeing, obviously, with another different background, I'd say, is the one and only Emory Lida. Emory, I like what we got going on with the background here.
Yeah, new apartment for the year. First week doing the show here. Got the LEDs going strong. We'll see if the natural light comes in enough for me to continue using them. But no, got a bit more of a flashy setup than last year, and ready to talk some kart racing and maybe change up the lights a few times.
Yeah, exactly. And our other co-host here, the one and only Kaleb Vieska. Kaleb, you had an eventful weekend, I'd say.
Yeah.
You want to tell the people watching back at home kind of what happened to you? I know we had a pretty rough and tumble Saturday.
Yeah, it was an up and down weekend for me. Firstly, different backgrounds for all of us this week. I'm back in my apartment as well here in College Station. So that's, I guess, a fun fact. But yeah, it was an up and down weekend, no pun intended there. But myself, Zander Clements, and a couple of other guys actually want to go do the test weekend for the TSRS race this weekend. The DFW Triple Crown ran by Mike Eddles, who did a phenomenal job all year long. I did two of the events, and he did a really great job with the Metroplex series and good numbers. 150 people went out there, and it was really great to see kind of a lot of people go out there and race. But yeah, I had a little bit of an accident in the main event. Flipped for the first time, I guess, in my short career, and hopefully the last time. That was pretty gnarly and scary. But I really want to give a huge shout out to everybody who checked in, and a huge shout out to the entire DKC crew, Mike Eddles, Mike Jones, and Doug Hubbs, so many names, Chuck Frank, Bryce Frank, Aiden Rudolph, who was there with me as well, turning the wrenches for me and was worried sick after he saw me flip. But yeah, huge thanks to everybody who was out there and gave me well wishes or whatnot. So yeah, very very thankful to feel the love this weekend. And yeah, luckily no injuries, just a little bit of road rash on my left arm and a sprained wrist, but we're good to go this weekend. I'll be back and announcing at TSRS this weekend, so that's exciting, and back at the same track that I was at last week. So it'll be exciting. But yeah, it was a wild one. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's good to see you're all right. I remember. I actually don't remember what I was doing. I just remember getting the text in the group chat from I think Kyle saying that Kaleb flipped, and we all didn't think it was real until Kaleb went in the chat and he's like, "I'm alright, boys," and we're like, "Oh my god, this actually just happened."
Yeah.
So yeah, good to see you. All right. You mentioned TSRS. You mentioned DKC. Let's talk about it a little bit, right? This
Yeah.
weekend, we got TSRS coming up. Kaleb, you're kind of, I'd say, the voice of it, right? What do you think we
Sure.
can expect? You're at DKC last week racing. Now TSRS is heading there. What can we expect this weekend?
Yeah, so we're back at DKC this year. Been a long while since we've been to Dallas Kart Complex, and they've done a great job out there with making two tracks, making a rental track, which is always going to be good for business. We see it at Orlando year in year out, and we're seeing it here at DKC. So that'll be something cool to see. And then the new track as well that I actually got to drive, and I was racing because I wanted to go into the weekend and know what I was talking about because it's a track that I've never driven and never been at. So. Yeah, I got I think more than enough intel than I really needed, but it's gonna be a good weekend. Very physical racetrack, a lot of turns and a lot of G forces, that a lot of G loads through some of the corners. So that's gonna be something to look out for here this weekend as well. But Jake French was stupid quick this past weekend, and he was absolutely flying. So it could be a good weekend for Jake French as well. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like for them, but it's going to be a really, really good race, and I know a lot of drivers making their return as well to I guess regional racing action this weekend. Names that I guess we'll wait until we get into it, but yeah, it's going to be great. Heat 3 and finals obviously live on the Sunday, and then it all starts on Saturday morning, I should say, with warm up, and then we get into Heat 1 and Heat 2 later on in the day. But it's going to be great racing action. Round number 4, I believe, the midsummer mashup. So that's going to be something good to see and going to be exciting. Championship fight already heating up in between Jesus Vasquez Jr., Aiden Rudolph, and Peyton Phillips. So going to be an exciting one for sure.
Yeah, well, talk about exciting news. There's actually a lot of racing action going on this weekend. Unfortunately, we're not going to be at one of them here. It's called the U.S. Trophy Final. We were supposed to be there. Unfortunately, uh, last minute changes. We will not be at the Rotax U.S. Trophy Final at Newcastle Motorsports Park, but nonetheless, still want to talk about it. This is going to be pretty much a layout that we are accustomed to seeing, right? This is just without the shark fin. Rotax was here last year. Um, it races pretty well, I'd say, for the Rotax package. It's got a pretty long straightaway. It's got some passing opportunities, as does Newcastle usually. And so I think it's going to be a pretty good event. 6 tickets on the line, 2 in the senior class, 1 for senior max, and then 1 will go to DD2 for the Rotax Grand Finals later on in this year. But Emory, you have a lot of laps around Newcastle. Not as much in the Rotax package, but what do you think we could expect, around Newcastle and a Rotax?
Yeah, no, I think it's going to race good. And if last year's race was any indication, the 2023 U.S. Trophy Final, there's a lot of overtaking opportunities. I mean, the reverse layout really, turn one being into I-70 is always a good passing zone. I think in the Rotax as well, kind of the bottom end isn't quite as snappy as an X30 would be, but certainly the mid-range to upper range is going to be really good to see. And I think in general, I mean, this Newcastle race as well, pretty much any layout you throw it at, any series, any engine package that you run on that racetrack. And I mean, Rotax is no different. We saw strong numbers last year, expecting a pretty good field again this year as well. And I mean, ultimately, like you name the corner and there's a place to pass. It's something we talked about when we were previewing Summer Nats a few weeks ago for Scusa, that pretty much every corner on this racetrack, there is a place that you can be passed. So I expect a lot of good racing this weekend. I think the weather's going to be better than last year, a little bit more consistent. And, we'll see. I think having the opportunity to go to the Rotax Grand Finals is a great opportunity. We saw last year how intense it made some of the racing in both the senior and the junior finals, putting on classics, and I expect no different this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one more race to talk about here. It's actually the one that we want to talk about probably the most because it's the most anticipated one. It's going to be the Scusa Pro Kart Challenge at K1 Circuit. A couple drivers have done some laps around here, but this has been the highly awaited opening of this racetrack here, the debut for K1 Circuit. And really, it's good to have a track over in the West Coast. I mean, we have Utah, but with the closing of Cal Speed, we talked to Billy Musgrave a couple weeks ago about it, and he said how much of kind of a hit it took for the West Coast guys. So to finally have a track over there and what seemingly is a very good one that could host potentially in the future, maybe some international stuff. So for both of you guys, I'll pass it on to you first, Kaleb here. What do you think this means, not only for the West Coast guys, but for the national series as a whole, having just another track that we can go to, especially on the West Coast?
Yeah, no. Firstly, it's great. This year we've seen a lot of the national stuff kind of stay on the east side of the U.S. So I think with this great addition to the west side of things with K1 Circuit, that was super, I guess, long awaited for a very long time. So I think it's great to see K1 finally open with the inaugural race this weekend. A couple of drivers did some laps. So it was definitely good to see, and hopefully some resurgence from for the West Coast, because we knew for quite some time the club stuff was kind of dying down a little bit, and their regional market as well was kind of getting a little less in numbers as well. Hearing from the people from Nevada as well, moving out of Texas to kind of try and get better, I guess, regional and club market. So I think this is good for a lot of the kart shops there, and for the teams as well, to give them another track to kind of race at. And I mean, I've seen pictures of it. I really want to go there so bad, but the AstroTurf there on that main straightaway, and the mountains in the background, it's definitely super cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, definitely going to be one of those scenic tracks that we go to for sure. I know some of our Cartister members, Trevor Blue, Brandon Simone, we call them the wilderness explorers, because whenever we go out there, anything with mountains, they go out there and they go hiking the day before a race
Yeah.
weekend. So I'm sure if we end up going out here at some point, hopefully in the near future, I'm sure they'll be out there. Emory, I know you were able to see some onboard footage. I know you've seen the racetrack. We've all kind of seen what the racetrack looks like, obviously, from an aerial shot and different pictures that have been posted from the K1 circuit and K1 speed. But, what can you tell us about what you see looking at this track layout and what we can expect this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I expect it's going to race really, really well. I mean, first off, just watching the laps I was able to watch over the course of the last week or so, you can really see the amount of speed that you're able to carry through some of the apexes, particularly in the turns 6, 7, 8 section, and even on the backside too in the turns 10 and 11, it's really phenomenal. I think as well as that, like this is one of the best tracks that we've seen made in the U.S. market over the last decade or two. And really, I mean, Kaleb mentioned the West Coast kind of needing it for the club scene, but I would argue really this is the caliber of track that the U.S. kind of needs to have brought in, especially on the West Coast and having,
For sure.
California, everyone mentions kind of the club numbers being down, but California still has really a hotbed for talent over there when it comes to drivers that run towards the front on the West Coast and in California in particular. So, you don't have Cal Speed like you used to, but that always used to be a pretty strong club scene, whether it be Lancaster or Cal Speed early, any of the other Pro Kart Challenge stuff over the last few years. It's always been pretty strong draws in California. And so I would expect that, K1 over the course of the next couple of years is going to grow in terms of popularity. I really do think we're going to see a West Coast swing for SCUSA at some point. I think they're going to be the first series to go there. And then, I mean, again, this is an international grade track. It's 1.2 miles. It's one of the longest tracks you're going to see on the American calendar. The curves there are very useful. The straightaways are going to make it so drafting is important, but at the same time, I mean, it's such a flowing track. Like I'd say, I'm hyped to see the racing from this weekend. Again, I really wish I could be there. I wish I could make the trip to California last minute, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of good battling happening this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the layout, I think it's going to race very well. Long straightaways. It seems as though I think that last corner is almost flat in the K side of things. So in the X30 and shifter, obviously it would not be, but it's going to race well. It's got some good passing opportunities. It's got like almost a tic-tac-toe section like we used to have at Sonoma. And it's got almost like I want to call it a Pocono section with this triangle bit we have between turns 9, 10, and 11. And it's going to make it pretty difficult to defend around this place without getting getting a switchback done on you. So I think it's going to leave the door open for some last lap passes for drivers that want to white line early to probably get crossed over quite early on in the race as well. So I'm excited for the layout, excited for the West Coast guys, and I'm excited to go out there and travel far west rather than some of the stuff that we are accustomed to doing here on the East Coast or even Central, United States. One other thing that I want to talk about here before we bring on our guest after a commercial break here is a driver that we spoke about quite a bit in last week's show, Harley Keeble. He was maybe under some fire, I'd say, in terms of some of his driving over at MCC. Specifically, it was with Austin Garrison and Brandon Carr, and we talked about it, and we gave our 2 cents on it all. But I want to give credit to the Interim S driver here. He did post an apology on his Instagram page, and it was good. He basically just said, "Listen, I take full responsibility for this. I apologize to the team, apologize to the series, to the drivers that were involved in some of his actions." And I think it was really mature from Harley to get this post out there because I think it really shows you the character, right? You don't want to leave it up to debate for how drivers or mechanics or team owners or fans think of you. You go out there and be the bigger person and make sort of a post like this. And so I credit Harley, and I think this is the right thing to do. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the whole thing and what you kind of took away from his post.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think sorry, Emory, but I think Alex, you said it best. Just very mature, and after stuff happens on the racetrack, it's you can come off very hot, and after you take a couple of days to think about it, you can calm down and really think about your actions and what you did or whatnot. So, yeah, I think super mature, and we want to see stuff like this more often from everybody who goes out there and races. So I think it was really cool to see Harley kind of do that, and very mature as well. So a lot of respect for him nonetheless.
Yeah. Well,
Emory?
and I also think too, like this was all for me. I always felt like this would kind of be the expected outcome. Like at the end of the day, you see all of the guys racing towards the front of the U.S. Pro category. I mean, whether it be Ryan Norberg, Austin Garrison, Joe Turney when he comes over, Harley Keeble, Alessandro De Tullio, even Paulie Massimino, a lot of the other guys as well. Like when you're racing at the front of the field and you're racing consistently weekend after weekend after weekend against similar guys, more or less, there's going to be times where you let the emotions get the best of you. Now, some guys handle it a bit better than others. Some guys in the moment are maybe a little bit more reserved. I think Harley, I think he realizes that he maybe overstepped the line over the course of the weekend at Cincinnati. But to his credit, like you said, Alex, this was a necessary step, and it's one that I'm sure that as soon as he was away from the track and had more than a little bit of time to reflect on, he knows how he did as a driver, whether he would admit it or not. He knows kind of what he did wrong in the initial part of the weekend. And ultimately, like, to have a public apology like that, it takes guts to be able to say where you're wrong, to admit it in front of 1,000, 1,500 people that follow you on Instagram, and everyone else is going to see it over the course of the next few weeks. So, I have a lot of respect for Harley for it. I think it was the right move. It's a move that I'm sure internally he felt was the move he had to do after seeing some of the backlash and certainly feeling that he might have been in the wrong for it. And I think we move on. Harley's insanely talented. The rest of the field's pretty talented, insanely talented as well. And there's more great racing to have as long as we just don't step over each other's foot.
Yeah, you made a good point, right? We move on. It happened. He made his apology. That's it. We're on to the next race now. And one more thing that I do want to mention actually here, we weren't there, but obviously, some of our KC members, obviously Xander Clements, Trevor Blue, the two owners of Kart Chaser, were at Colorado Karting Circuit over at the Centennial Airport. And how cool is that? To have the Kart Chaser start finish line, to get laps around that place. That is, speaking of K1 Circuit, I think Colorado Karting Circuit as well is going to be another one of the premier go-kart tracks that we go to. And it's awesome that it's, central United States, right? I think it's a pretty good place for West Coast guys, East Coast guys, and obviously the people from the central United States to go out there and visit and go and drive. So for that track to really be the renovation that it's had and how awesome it looks on the onboards from Xander Clements, you want to go to Kart Chaser's Instagram page, you can go see Kart Chaser's very own go out there in a KN and an OKN package and rip laps around there. I know he was pretty beat after the OKN drive especially, so please don't harp on him.
Kind of rough.
Yeah, don't harp on him too much for the missed apexes. We kind of all did that in our fair share in the group chat and in the comment section. So give him some love over there. But actually, genuinely, the onboard looked incredible.
Yeah.
What was your guys' takes on it all? I know we kind of watched that video too many times, roasting Xander probably.
Yeah. I was just kind of watching the video back in forward, trying to see where I could kind of bug him for either missing an apex. And honestly, he drove quite well for driving all weekend, because he drove on Saturday as well. And then he had, I think, 3 hours from when the checkered flag flew for his main event to get over to Colorado to go do that. And it looked like he had a good time, driving out there, and the track looks, amazing. The elevation changes everything. There's a landing strip right next to the racetrack, so it just adds, very cool features to it all. So I think it's super, super cool to see. And we're talking about, the expansion going west and, series looking for tracks to go to next year. I think it gets a lot harder this year with the addition of 2 tracks, that could be ready, by 2026, 2025. Well, 2025 is next year. I say by 2026, 2 tracks that could be ready for national series. So I think it's super cool to see. And it's going to get, I think it's going to get interesting in the next couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. You made a good point, right? We have 2 racetracks on the horizon, or actually right in front of us, right? K1 Circuit this weekend. We just had Colorado Karting Circuit as well. So, like you said, I think by 2026 latest, I hope to see those tracks at least in discussion for the national scene. And we'll get into that later in the show, kind of what we think some series should do with the tracks that we decide to go to. But that's been the first segment here. That's been setting the grid. When we come back from this commercial break, we're going to talk with Speed Concept's very own Austin Garrison, points leader in the United States Pro Kart Series.
So you finally want to get behind the wheel, huh?
Yeah, I've been shooting for 3 years and I've never got to drive.
Well, you're going to need some more gear than just your helmet. Why don't you go to shopakr.com. They got their inventory online and they'll ship it the same day if you order before 5:30 p.m. Eastern.
They got shoes?
Yep.
Gloves?
Yep.
Rip protectors?
Got those too.
Can they make me go fast?
No.
Here at Acceleration Kart Racing, we've got everything you need to get on track. What happens next? Well, that's on you. Check us out online at shopakr.com.
All right, welcome back. You just heard from Trevor Blue and Xander Clements in the very famous AKR commercial. We gotta get some of these commercials on Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like these are top tier commercials. But nonetheless, Coming up right now is Speed Concepts' very own Austin Garrison. Austin, welcome to the show, buddy. Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to come and talk with us. I mean, how are you doing tonight?
Good. A little bit hungry, but we're gonna wait till after this episode to go and munch down on some sushi and maybe a glass of wine or something.
Well, thank you, buddy. Nonetheless, we talked about TSRS. In the first segment. Let's just get into that. You're going to be there this weekend. You know, doing your duties, doing your coaching, and all that. You know, what can we expect from you and your boys this weekend?
We've been having a great, turnout, for all of our drivers. Been running up front, nonstop in junior and senior. But unfortunately, Gage Bailey, he was racing with us out at USPKS and got into a pretty nasty wreck. Very fast recovery for him. I go in and hope. Thank God he didn't have to go through surgery, but he did, break some bones in his leg, which wasn't good. So that's going to be another one of our, top running junior drivers that we have for trackside karting services to go and, be up front to go and fight for the win and a podium. But throughout this year, all of our drivers in 206 and junior and senior, and even in 206 mini and in our K juniors and K seniors, we all been running up front. If we're not winning, we're for sure fighting for a podium, and it's been going well so far. They just got done running the race. I guess it was a race this past weekend at Dallas. I wasn't there. Unfortunately, I had to go and deal with some personal stuff back here at home. But, we've showed great pace for the people who were there with our team. And we look forward to running with more people and me being there this upcoming week.
Well, let's talk about you a little bit, right? This year has been, I'd say, I don't want to say your strongest year in the pro senior class, but it's definitely been your most consistent. And it's why you're leading the points in the USPKS. And it's why you were pretty close to winning over there, Pro Tour side of things. And what do you think makes this year different than, I'd say, the previous 8 years you've done as senior, besides the fact that you actually are in the seat consistently for once?
Right. So, kind of like, going back from 8 years, there's been times that I was just running, shifter for a while. And then I would do like a season back in, a single speed. Then I would go back to shifter, and you can still be fast in both, but to be perfect in one to, another, you have to go and just focus on one. You can be fast in both, but to be a little bit better at one, you have to go and stick on that path. So definitely in the past 8 years of me going back and forth, quite a bit. And for me, like you said, having a consistent year for the full season this year, and it's been, in single speed, I think the last time it was like 2019, I think was like my full year that I went to have. Besides that, it was shifter. Then I didn't race for a year, and it's been going great. Last year we had a good opportunity to go and win the USPKS event. I didn't run the first round of it, but I ended up finishing third in the series. Wasn't too far back in the points, but we had really great outings against the best in the world. We're coming over here, like Joe Turney was over here. We put on a great show against him, and we ended up beating him a couple of times racing. But for this year so far, we've been doing quite well. I would go and think, our luck wasn't that great at the last round of the USPKS, but we've been kind of up and down. At the beginning of this season for SCUSA, we didn't have a great showing at the track in Orlando. We were having some issues on our part of things, but after that, I think we kind of buttoned things up, and we've been on a pretty good tear so far this season.
You mentioned bouncing around between single speed and shifter. You bounced around teams for a while too throughout that stretch. What do you think makes Speed Concepts kind of the right fit for you?
So I've known these guys for forever. Back when I was with Kaleb Grand Prix, and when I was 12 or 13 years old, there goes this thing. Being back with them, it was the same guys who I'm with now. They're like family. I've known them basically my whole entire life since I was 12, if not younger than that, knowing of them. But you know, for being with these guys, I'm just super, comfy with them. Everything goes smooth underneath there. We don't really have any problems. I like everybody, and I think we have a really good junior and senior program going on now. It's one of the strongest, teams I've seen in a long time to go and push
Yeah.
these kids that are out there winning races, and we're winning races in senior and junior. Our team it's just super strong. But I feel like it's a really great fit. Everybody's calm. It's not tense at all. It's really a family friendly environment that we're in, and everybody's just chill. We're just doing our own work, our own jobs, and getting these drivers to go and be up front and winning all these races.
Yeah, and I feel like for you, Austin, you've kind of been through it all, right? You were overseas racing for a little while with the CRG guys. You even did the World Championships over there. Came back and ran shifter for a little bit with the RPG guys, and then kind of found a home with the Speed Concepts guys. So I guess putting your career as a whole, I mean, to have the experience and have the accolades that you have, what's kind of been it, about the Speed Concepts guys? 'Cause I know you said that's a family for you, but I guess landing the whole full year this year, does that motivate you even more, I guess, to try and get a championship this year for those guys?
Yeah, no, 100%. We're gonna, at this race coming up out of Indy, we're gonna push as hard as we possibly can. We want to go out and win. I'm not the type of guy to go and play. I'm not gonna go and push as hard, but I'm racing really hard and all that against people who's around me. Like I'm gonna push hard to go and win. We want to go and win. I never really risk anything that's gonna go and crash me out or anybody else out ever. So it's just like me racing as hard as I possibly can is what we're gonna go and do for this next round we have coming up. But yeah, hopefully we can go and everything goes well, and we go and do end up finishing well. If not, go and win and get this championship. It'd be nice. But yeah, from saying me running with CRG over in we'll back it up a little bit, for running over in shifter over in Europe, that was one of the greatest times I've ever had as well, because no other American has really been over there besides like AJ Myers and Gary with the GFC, Gary Carlton. To have that experience was huge, to go over there and race. And yeah, I came back. I ran tag. That was in 2019, I think. I ran tag the whole entire year. And then, hey, you want to go and run shifter and at this world finals? And I'm like, sure. I haven't raced it in over a year, but why not? I'll go and hop in it and see what we can go and do. And I went there 2 weeks prior to the world finals, and I was testing. I was fast. But I was racing against 60 plus of the best people across the whole globe, and I think I ended up finishing in the mid 20s or something like that in the main event. But the main event was massive. So yeah, leading on to that, I think that was when I took that year break, and then I went with RPG after that. But the racing with that, I didn't race too much. I ran the Florida Winter Tour, which is spread out, like being like a month apart, and then it wasn't too much racing going on after that until Rock Vegas. And then right after that is when I got snuggled up with Speed Concepts Racing, and I've been with them ever since.
Yeah, funny enough, I think your CRG kart stand is still somewhere there in the shop. I saw it, I think, last week. So
yeah,
I sent you a picture of that. So that's still funny that you and those guys still have it kind of sticking around in the shop.
Yeah. Ewan's awesome. I love those guys. They had so much effort they put into me and the whole team and everything, and they just wanted what was best for all their drivers. The effort was there the whole time. But I always have a heart out for Ewan and everything. They do a great job over there. They have a pretty good outing going on this weekend in Texas. I've seen their driver lineup. They got a pretty strong amount of drivers there. Yeah. But no, that's a pretty warm feeling going on inside that, knowing that my name is still kind of like trickling around in areas that's still back at the CRG place and out in Texas.
Yeah. And one thing also, Austin, that you mentioned, kind of taking a bit of a backseat when you were with RPG at the end of 2020 and into 2021, and then you come back to Speed Concepts in 2022. And the early part of the year, you were kind of in and out of the seat. I remember you came back to GoPro/Trackhouse to run that USPKS race. You ran select races through the rest of 2022.
Right.
And then the last 2 years, last year was still a bit more part-time, but more races sprinkled in. And then obviously this year, the full national calendar. I mean, how different is it for you as a driver to kind of go in and you're racing for points this year, racing kind of all of these series as compared to, I mean, really the last 4 to 5 years prior to this, even if you ended up inadvertently running for a championship, it was after kind of missing a race here and there. So kind of like how different was that consistency in running a full year?
You just freeze.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, Austin just texted me saying that he just lost power. I think technical difficulties tonight are crazy because
Yeah.
well, my computer died, but that's because my computer cannot like charge. It was at 25%. I plugged it in, and I was watching it trickle down throughout the show, and then Austin just said that he lost power. So
These Floridians, Emory, I always get the excuses, man. I can't
it's,
stand it.
I swear every week we have some kind of issue with Alex's computer's
Yeah.
no,
power.
I think it's
And
actually broken.
I'm
it,
not,
it it's done for. It's been bad because I've while we have time to wait for Austin to come back in the show, I'm instructing with Skip Barber this weekend. And I'm at Lime Rock, Connecticut. And for those of you who actually have been here, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, and so I've been struggling with Wi-Fi issues. But then also throughout the day, I've like my computer has just been dying every 10 minutes. So I expected this to happen, but I was hoping it just would last throughout the show. Clearly, it didn't. So I'm on my phone right now, which is great. But yeah. Well, welcome to the show without Austin Garrison for now.
yeah.
But yeah, this has been a great.
Oh, there
So
goes Alex
Oh,
too.
I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. See, this Wi-Fi is terrible here. Um, well, while we wait for Austin, I think it is actually cool to hear from somebody. He brings up a good point actually, of because we don't get to hear from many drivers who go from single speed to shifter back to single speed and just bounce around. We've seen Kremers do it, and pretty much Austin. That's it, right? Because Margato's now committed to shifter, and
Yeah.
most of the drivers we've seen Harley do it every once in a while. Dalton on his one-off shifter races, but not many drivers
AJ
have been able
goes,
to. Yeah, AJ does KA and
but
shifter.
it's not
I hope
X30.
to I hope to see him in X30 at some point. I know he's talked about it, he's hinted
He's
at it,
done
but
Yeah.
I
he's
want to see
done
him do a full
X30 a
season.
few times. Yeah.
I want to see
He's
him do a full season. But I
what you're
think
saying, do a full season of shifter in one cat or in one class, or excuse me, one series, X30 in another series?
exactly,
Is that the thinking?
exactly. I think he can do it. I
Because
want to see it. The people want to see it. All right, but I think for Austin, what he's trying to say is, listen, like what you're seeing this year is really what he's been able to do all his career, which is we know that from a guy like Austin and his caliber of driving, but to actually bounce from single speed to shifter year after year, it is tough. It is tough to actually rack your brain around things, especially against drivers who only compete in shifter or only compete in single speed. It is actually tough to bounce around that, and that's why usually you see drivers kind of stick to one. We heard from Morgado when he first went to shifter last year doing KZ2 in Europe, and then came to run this year, and he struggled the first two races, and then from there he hasn't looked back here in the States. So takes some drivers takes some time to get used to for some drivers. But I think it is cool to hear from somebody of his caliber to say, listen, like now that I'm with a team that I can call home, and then I can run X30 consistently, and I know that I have a package underneath me, and I know that I have an actual campaign that I can run. You see what he can do with it.
Yeah. No, and
yeah,
a lot of respect to that entire Speed Concepts team as well. They work super hard all year long with engines, with setup, and whatnot to have all their drivers quick year in year out. And I know we kind of always mess with Austin, asking him when he's going to go back to shifter since the class just got bigger, and even with Jake French this past weekend as well. Messing around with him a little bit. He's like, dude, me and Xander, we're kind of like, hey, man, you finally retired, and this class is just getting a lot bigger. So it's cool to see all those guys. And for a guy like Garrison, who went overseas and ran top 20 at the World Championships, was super cool to see as well. I guess looking back at that race now, so that was kind of something to look out for there.
yeah.
There
I
he
think we
is.
got Austin back.
I'm back.
Oh
Had
man,
a
this
mini
has been.
hurricane roll through here. Who knows? Blew out the power for a split second.
All right, welcome. I was completely, my computer was done for, so you guys could continue the conversation you guys had. Emery, re-ask your question to Austin.
Where were we? Okay.
Something like that. Yep.
Yeah. So anyways, 5 ages ago,
Yep.
2020, 2021, you mentioned you're kind of out of the seat more with RPG. Even before that, I think you were kind of, again, sporadic with the shifter stuff and the X30 stuff going back and forth and never really in full campaigns for a while. How different of a mindset is it, and just from an approach standpoint, is it as a driver to go from, always having the pace when you run, but mostly running kind of one-off races or like select parts of a season to suddenly now kind of being in the points battle for every series you run?
Oh no. Oh, he's back. Okay, we're good.
Did I lag out again or something?
No, you're good.
For
You're
a
back. You're
second.
back.
All right. It was something about me and the seasons of how it feels now to run a full season, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the confidence and everything. Well, yeah, a big confidence boost because you have a championship you can go and have a fight for to go and win. Definitely, like you were saying, I was in and out of running shifter and sporadic with what races I was going and doing because we didn't have that many people underneath our team a couple of years ago, but now it's starting to go and grow more and more and that goes and helps me go and race. So all of our driver coaching we do underneath there, is starting to go and show that, hey, these guys are running up front and with their engines that they go and, have a really great service for everybody and where everybody's using them and they're having, great results with them. And, our driver coaching we have is just, expanding more and more drivers underneath our race team. So, that's helping me and, the whole team out in a big hole so I can go and continue to go and race. And we have enough people here that I can go and put on a full season. And I'm super confident, at the going into the end of this season that we're going to go and hopefully catch this championship win.
Yeah. And I mean, Austin, I know you're not gonna be able to drive for long. We're already starting to see a lot of drivers kind of start their own businesses within the sport. We saw with Ryan starting his academy and his driver coaching. You as well. I mean, you're wearing the shirt, your Racecraft development. I want to kind of dive into that as well, right? You're not gonna be able to drive for long. I'm not trying to say you're old. It was your birthday, I think, yesterday. So
I'm getting old.
yeah. So I guess something to think about. You are getting old. Your birth. How old did you turn yesterday, by the way?
26.
Yeah, so you're 4 years away from X30 Masters, dude. You're getting there.
I will not be racing that. You'll never see me at Masters ever.
But I mean, I guess what's it kind of been like to start that own team and start, I guess, get yourselves out there? Because I know you're doing some of the regional and club market as well.
Right. Yeah. No, it was a pretty big step forward. I went to go and take for working on a local level to go and help drivers out and everything. One of the drivers is Peter Shasso, who kind of was with me when I went and first started this, and that was one of the drivers that I had going and running the races at the Orlando Kart Center. There are local races there. He was with me, and we ventured off to a race on in Homestead. Which he got a little incident in the pre-final, but he made a really good drive in the main event, and hopefully that opened some eyes because I had a couple of people reach out to me after that. I had a really nice tent set up that we had displayed, and as soon as you walk into the racetrack, and I had for being around such big teams and the whole national events that hospitality is a really big thing. You want everything to be clean and tidy and ran the right way. So just learning off of that, and I have really good driver coaching going on for myself. And, I had some people go and reach out to me after the past race in Homestead a few weeks ago that, want to go and do some driver coaching as well in the future. And hopefully some races going on for SSKC and other local events at Homestead and Orlando. But, it's definitely, nobody says it's going to be easy, but it's tough with the schedule that I have because not only do I go and work for, Mike Speed and I race for him, we do all the national events for USPKS and SCUSA. I also work for Tim Lowball out in Texas of doing the TSRS races. And sometimes there is races that we have a test weekend before. and sometimes I can't go and attend to those because I'm kind of starting up my own thing. So my schedule is very thin on what I can and can't do, but I'm trying my absolute best to go and be home and driver coach these younger drivers who want to go and feed off of me and go and learn what I've been through my whole life, and kind of advance them more rapidly than them being by themselves at a racetrack.
Yeah, and I mean, when you work like guys like Mike Speed and Tim Lobaugh, who have been in the sport for quite some time, I mean, I've spoken to Tim, a number of times, and Mike as well. But I mean, it seems like those guys are really kind of behind you to kind of get your stuff up and going, and they're kind of understanding whenever you have to either take a weekend off or step aside for a little bit to kind of help your guys out or start your own thing as well, because it's all a business, and you got to start your business as well at some point, don't you think?
Yeah, no, 100%. And Mike Speed has been a huge asset for to go and help me out and whatever I need. And from my team and driver coaching based out of Orlando. Obviously, I go and live close to Miami and do coaching there as well. But they're only an hour and 30 minutes away, which is awesome. If I have something drastically go and happen with a motor or whatever, it's just a phone call away, and I go and drive up there, and then they'll do absolutely whatever. I go and ask if I need to go and have any help on anything, which anything for chassis or engines, whatever. They're so close, and I'm fortunate that they're in and down in Florida. Um, Tim, he has talked to a couple of his drivers there to go and say, hey, listen, we're going to do a race out in Florida. I want you to go and be with Austin to go and do a driver coaching lesson with him before we go and do this race here in Florida. I feel like you guys are going to go learn a lot from him, and he's not going to be able to attend to this race, but what you learn from him on track will go and benefit and take a load off of me when we get to this racetrack, because I don't got to tell you to do A, B, and C of hitting an apex, where to turn in and all that. Once we kind of focus on that all day and do a 80 to 100 laps on the racetrack, once you go to this racetrack, you kind of know it's fresh in your head when you're going there 4 days later that, hey, I just did this with Austin. I can kind of figure it out and know how to go and take this corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, that's kind of a look towards the landscape of where you're at now, but I kind of want to take a step back again, even further back than maybe what we talked about earlier. I mean, you were kind of part of the OGP dynasty, so to speak, in karting when it came to the sort of development of you.
Right.
Of course, Ryan was there for a little bit. You had Ashley, you had Nick Neri, Kyle Kirkwood, Oliver Askew, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. First off, like, talk to me about some of the memories from those days, and second, like, as someone that's now kind of on the other side and kind of working more so on developing drivers, getting drivers to do tons of laps nowadays, what are some of the key differences in U.S. karting compared to when you were growing up? And maybe not even growing up, but more so like 14, 15, 16, like 10, 11 years ago.
Right. So, I mean, on a friend standpoint, like our memories it goes back so long. Me and Kyle, and sometimes Oliver, like we'll send videos of stuff that we did, outside of the racetrack that were just, it was so funny. Just memories that nobody was ever gonna forget. But on a driving standpoint, basically what we did, was we had it, at a pretty nice way. I said it in the past on a podcast with Xander that out of OGP we had our own track, and the track wasn't super difficult to go and drive, but it was the amount of laps of staying in the seat and having Alex Speed be there and having Gary Carlton be there and kind of go and coach us on and everything. Yeah, we were fast at that racetrack, but it was working on threshold braking here. We know how to drive the racetrack, but they would advance everything else besides that. And we would just go and be up there nonstop and just hammer laps down. It was insane how many laps we have to go and do per month. We had a certain schedule. We had to go and be there and have to go and run 300 laps. By the time this date goes by, and it's tough because people don't really do that as much anymore. People really don't have that group of 5 or 6 people that are on this schedule that are going to this racetrack that they're close to and running 200 laps in a day or 2 days. And I feel like that benefited us a lot, and that helped for sure because Nick got into cars, Ashley did some cars, Oliver was doing cars, and as Kyle is running a full schedule in IndyCar now, and definitely everybody has their own little clique of what they're good at and what they're not, but just being at the racetrack with these guys, it made it so much easier for all of us.
Yeah.
Austin, I got a question here about kind of what we've seen this year so far in terms of scheduling during a race weekend, right? You guys have been used to in the past pretty much the same sort of schedule, right? Just following, for example, on the SCUSA side of things, this Saturday, Sunday format. This year we brought in the Pro Show for SCUSA and for Stars. You didn't get to run any Star stuff, but you did the SCUSA stuff, and you've also run out USPKS obviously all year long, which is more of the traditional schedule that we're used to, obviously with the pro stuff towards the end of the day. But with throughout the SCUSA season, we saw changes in the schedule. Do you have a favorite, and do you have kind of any input that you can provide for us in terms of how you felt it maybe assisted you or maybe didn't assist you in terms of your coaching at all, and obviously for you being a pro driver?
Right. So with me, when I just kind of focus on the senior drivers that I go and have with our team, um, but definitely with people who are a team that has one coach for everybody, and it definitely makes it easier for somebody like that who is just one driver coach for working for mini, junior, and senior, because you do have a break. So you have junior, and mini in the morning, and then you have senior and the pro guys later in the afternoon. So that would make sense. But for somebody like me, who just goes and works with the senior drivers underneath our tent, because Alex Speed goes and does all the stuff for junior, that benefiting me. No, but I think it was cool. I don't. I'm not discrediting anything that they go and try to put something else on us. Just different to go and change something. But for me, I only have X amount of senior drivers who I go and coach. But like I said, if you have a different team, who we have one coach who works with junior and senior, and it makes it tough.
Do you feel like there's a level of difficulty added, especially with the qualifying format and whatnot, and obviously the longer races as well?
Yeah, no, the qualifying format for sure. Because what SCUSA was, that was I don't really remember on the SCUSA qualifying compared to the USPKS qualifying. Is one faster than the other, like quicker, like green white checker?
Yeah, green white checker for the SCUSA stuff, and then
For
obviously
the
there's like the
5 minutes.
fastest. Yeah.
Oh, right. So yeah, for the USPKS, that was the fast six
Freeze
or
group.
whatever. Right.
Freeze group. Yep.
Right. I kind of like it for the green white checker style. You know, my people might disagree on that and wanting to go and run for what the USPKS goes and does, and breaking down the top six or whatever, and then going out there and doing one big qualifying at the very end of it. But I just feel like doing a green white checker, you got to have honestly a lot of issues that I've worked with drivers is trying to go and have their cart fire off as fast as possible when their green flag flies during a race. When you got 5 laps or whatever, 5 minutes for USPKS, I'm not saying it makes it a whole lot easier, but when you're running on a SCUSA event for a green white checkered, you make it where you can't drop a tire, you can't make any mess ups at all, and you got to make sure that you get your tires hot as you possibly can at the first opening lap, and you got a lap that your tires are still kind of cold, but the last lap has to be perfect. And once you've kind of figured that out, that kind of goes and overlaps to running in the pre-final, running to a main event when you have new tires on. You got new tires on. Tires are still cold. You warm them up for the first opening lap, but when the green flag flies, you want to make sure that you're on that edge everywhere, of not overstepping and dropping a tire. You want to be perfect those first few laps, and once your stuff comes in, you don't really have a too much of a fall off.
Yeah, and then obviously we've seen some series start to release their schedule for next year. We saw Stars do it. 3 of their 4 races, they got Charlotte, they got Newcastle, and they got Trackhouse. They're asking around what they would like to see for the 3rd race in the championship series. USPKS hasn't announced anything yet, and then SCUSA has kind of released the dates, but no tracks. For you, you've been to a lot of racetracks in your life. We obviously go to a lot of the same tracks, I would say, in previous years than what we have seen. Maybe when you were back in the OGP days, and obviously throughout your ranks in karting. Is there a couple of tracks, or maybe just one track in specific that you would like to see on the calendar that maybe we don't go to as often as the other tracks?
Right. I mean, I haven't been to. I mean, I know Stars has been through Pitt. I haven't been to Pitt in a long time. I think like there was a USPKS race or something a long time ago. I think I was with Comcart that we had a race at Pitt. That was the last time I've ever been there. And I love that racetrack. I don't think I've ever. Oh no, I think I was with Fullerton was the last time I had that. I think in 2018 or something. That was the last time I've been there. Yeah, 2019, something like that. And I love that racetrack. It was awesome. But you know, reading, I know everybody read, or majority of people read Gary Carlton's post on that that said, hey, we need to go and run over at the West Coast more. And they do have great tracks over on the West Coast, but for sure, venturing over there is a lot for, a lot of drivers being on the East Coast, traveling over to the West Coast, but everybody over on the West Coast also come over here to go and race as well. But a track like Utah, that's Miller Motorsports. I love that racetrack there. I mean, it's a long track. It's smooth. You got to drive it. You can't if you overdrive it, it'll really go and hurt you. Not like a track like you're at like Homestead. You can't get away with like overdriving a little bit there because all the grip and everything. Utah, you got to be super patient, get back on the throttle and everything. A lot of coasting. And also like the new track that came out of that at a K1 just to bring something new. It's having people that from the East Coast don't really venture over to the West Coast that much, but there is drivers over the West Coast that are running at K1 and kind of doing some testing here and there. But hopefully that'll be on the list for SCUSA next year is running at K1. It's just something different. Yeah, it does get boring on running the same exact racetracks nonstop. Just to go and change it up, I think we'll go and kind of brighten things up.
You kind of hinted at it there a little bit. You mentioned Homestead. You talked about how you can't really get away with much, like a Homestead where there's a lot of grip. Let's talk about that a little bit, right? I'd say this year, more than years past that I can remember in recent memory in go-karting, has there been so much talk about marbles offline and how much grip there's on the racetrack and, track development over the course of not only a weekend, but over the course of a season. We saw it at MCC. We went from the Pro Tour to then the Stars event where you weren't there. We had the Rotax event and then USPKS. There was a 1.5 second difference in lap time just from those events, right? Just because the grip levels that were constantly getting put down on the racetrack over the course of the month and a half that we went to that racetrack on national level.
Right.
Has it felt different for you compared to years past, maybe like the last 5 or so years, in terms of grip levels out there on the racetrack that we've gone to on national scenes?
Yeah, we have a lot more grip now. And people go and often ask me if the yellow tire has changed a lot, or because I really haven't experienced too much on the new red compound tire, but I know just by mounting the tire on the reds, as everybody knows, it goes on like butter. And the yellows that we have now, it's like the old red. It's super difficult to go and get on. But the rubber is more now because of I feel like the MG red is laying down a lot more rubber on the racetrack than what the yellow has. In the past, yellow really hasn't laid down that much rubber at all, and obviously everybody else is on the MG red a couple of years ago where the tire was hard and no track really had that much rubber. They had some grip here and there, but not like how it was. But now you go to a track like Homestead, you had to drive a certain line, and that's where drivers kind of go and have a problem on was driving from last year to now that it was a lot more rubber. You got to get off the brake. You can't, break your normal point as you have, on Thursday when everything changes and you got thousands of brand new tires going out on the racetrack. You advance where you go and get off the throttle and get off the brake and everything. Everything goes and changes. And so you see a problem on drivers advancing and kind of learning on that. But me driving it for sure that there's a major difference. You see out at Indy when we were there that the rubber was starting to get stacked up. You walk a little track walk out there on Sunday or Saturday afternoon. There was getting a pile of rubber everywhere, which is awesome. That's how it used to be a long time ago. Like when I ran X30 a long time ago, the yellows were so soft, and they would lay down like a stack of rubber around the whole entire racetrack. Like it was insane. But if you go offline, the more rubber that you go and have, everything's so hot, and it's just so much grip that if you go offline, you're going to go and pick up all those marbles and everything, twice as much as if you're on a track that's kind of green and a track that it's not really too hot. There's not that much, a grip. And if you go offline on a track that doesn't have much grip, it's not as bad as you're on a track that's overloaded with it. You go offline and you pick up so much marbles that you're just, fighting the cart for 2 laps after. You can kind of see when people go and block, and down a track like Indy, you start blocking down the straightaway like that, you're fighting the go-kart for a lap, maybe 2 laps after. So definitely it makes it more challenging, but I feel like it makes it more fun.
Yeah, you mentioned the blocking. I think with this new compound and how much rubber is being laid down, how many marbles are offline, it seems like it's made it pretty. It's almost one of those double-edged swords where we see a lot more blocking, I'd say, now this year in go-karting. I don't want to say blocking, but white lining probably earlier than we should in a lot of classes, and it's become kind of like the popular thing to do because multiple reasons. White drivers know that they really can't get moved out the way, and it's become pretty difficult offline to make the pass. But if you start white lining and if you develop that groove, right, it almost seems like it's easier to get the white lining done, and drivers can't really go around the outside too many marbles. You can kind of force them offline. We saw it at Badger Kart Club, especially that turn one. We saw it at MCC this past week or a couple weeks ago over at USPKS. Not only in your class, but right in the K junior side of things. How much of a white line situation we had going on there. Do you feel like this added level of grip out there on the racetrack and maybe the increased marbles has added to kind of more defensive driving, or do you think it's made it a little bit better than what you've experienced in the past?
Definitely on that, the drivers in junior and senior, they for sure have a lot more grip now than what they did, with the old red that didn't have as much grip at all. So it's kind of hard to go and justify that, because I feel like that this is have people are seeing that everybody's starting to go and block, and white line the whole racetrack and everything, and yeah, that goes and it develops a path where you can block, and you won't get blown off the racetrack because the marbles really aren't there. If you go and block for a whole race, you kind of clean up the bottom of the racetrack because everybody's running over it. But yeah, definitely going to the outside, it's just normal. Never go out there. You get so many marbles that it just doesn't make any sense to try to go and, get somebody. We have seen it. I think one of the junior drivers at MCC going in corner one, I think went to the outside. I think it was Enza, which is a
Yeah.
ballsy move, but he made it stick. It looked good. It did look pretty good. But
Yeah.
they were just blocking super hard. That track kind of, it's easy to go on block there, and it's not, the track's pretty narrow. If you start blocking and all that, it's super hard to go and get around somebody, and the right thing to do is not really move them out the way if you want to go and race clean. But other tracks, yeah, you go and see when you do block for a few laps, and it kind of spreads out after lap 4 or 5. It's not like consistent blocking on lap 1 to lap 20, at a track like Indiana, or you go to Homestead. It kind of block the first 3 or 4 laps, and then at mid race it kind of calms down, and then towards the end it gathers back up, because you got to go and salvage what they gain throughout the race. If they're in the lead and start of 5th, you got to for sure block. But definitely following up a track like at Cincinnati was pretty aggressive on the blocking there.
Well, what's kind of your take this year in particular? Because I think it's been more of a talking point than in recent years on kind of the driving standards as a whole. And I'm not pointing out any race, any class. I'm just pointing out what you've experienced in the driver's seat. It seems like it's been pretty aggressive out there.
Yeah, no, definitely. And even watching in like the K senior field, maybe you go to like a TSRS. It is hard racing, and they're blocking very hard. But everybody is. It's just they're so close in speed. You can't really go, and it's rare for somebody to go and just break away and go and leave. You get in that lower horsepower bracket. It makes it tough, and it's honestly, I go and tell drivers, I'm like, you got to do as best you possibly can and do what you can without, driving dirty to anybody or, pushing somebody off. You have somebody catching you and there's three people behind them drafting, and you're going to go and get freight train. I'm like, you better go and block. You got to cover your inside. Yeah, for blocking a whole bunch of laps, it's unfortunate and, it does suck. And you get tired of some guy in front of you blocking, and you're like, oh, and then you get aggressive and you go and move him out the way and everything. But there's kind of a fine line on that. I really don't know what to go and say because if I'm behind somebody and they're blocking for 20 laps, and you don't kind of move them a little bit to kind of get underneath them somewhere, you just sit behind them the whole entire time, that's like, hey, you got to try something. There's something you have to go and do, not blast them out the way. There is, a certain fine line on that stuff. But in the X30 Pro class, we don't really deal with that. But I've seen it, and KA Senior, the racing is very hard. It's very difficult to go and win because you see a lot of that type of style racing. Even in KA Junior, you see that type of style racing, which they're just blocking the whole entire time, and to go and win that is it's very difficult, blocking for 15, 20 laps. But I know we're going to go and see it this weekend at TSRS because every single race it's been like that. You see a whole field of 20 carts piled up.
Yeah.
But yeah, blocking, you're not racing to finish second or third. You need to go and win. You got to do what you got to go and do and win. And if it takes to go and block every single lap and, you're doing a really great job at it and, people are getting frustrated behind you and they keep, passing, trying to go and get up to the guy who's blocking in front. That's, like I said, it's not a bad idea for drivers to kind of look over their shoulder and say, hey, if you're starting to block and then the guy makes a pass for second, hey, let me get a crack at it. Let me get a crack at this guy leading. And they go and make a pass on second, and then you open up your line because you see that you have a gap of 2 cart lengths. You don't got to keep blocking for the next corner.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line on driver coaching and all that, and a certain point where over blocking is too much, and then if you don't block at all, you kind of ruin your own race.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think when you bring up TSRS as well, I mean that's good to see from I guess you coaching those guys like Landon Skinner and Jesus Vasquez as well. And Jackson Woney, who's also running kind of senior. So I guess lastly from here, I guess on this topic, how do you kind of prepare a guy like Jackson and Landon who kind of move up to the senior ranks this year, for the first time, and they're both rookies and they're both doing a good job landing out here in Texas and in that one USPKS race he did. And for Jackson as well, who's had, a really good start to his senior career at the Stars Championship Series.
Right. Yeah, when these guys move up and they're racing people who are been experienced and everything, and then I just tell them, I'm like, hey, sometimes when you're running a junior that you can leave like a door open here and there that people really won't pass you, but I'm like, you run in a tight field in senior, if you don't block, you feel like you're going to go and set up and over and under somebody, and there's somebody behind you, you have to go and block and cover your own place that you're in. And the biggest thing, and you see drivers going from junior to senior is that they have to go and unfortunately they got to go and block harder. They cannot open the door at all, even on lap 6 because everybody's in a whole train that is going to go and pass you. You got to be on the defense the whole entire time, and we've seen it with Jackson. That he thinks hey, somebody's crawling to the half back. I didn't think I had to go and block. Well, this corner is a really hard braking zone, and people have been coming back from 2 cart lengths passing all weekend, and he got passed. And once you get past in K, you start to get shuffled back because once you get a cut and the blood's flowing, that's when all the sharks come at you, and then you just get pushed back. So the biggest thing moving the junior to senior is just blocking. You got to be on the defense the whole race.
You're muted, Alex.
I'm muted. It's difficult to see this stuff on my phone. It's interesting. Okay. Anyways, speaking of pro, right, on the pro side of things, or in senior, should I say, you're leading the USPKS points. 1 round to go. Newcastle, a track that very well.
Won last year.
Exactly. So, is it any consolation prize seeing the weekend you just had at MCC for USPKS? Going to a racetrack in which you're strong at, you've been dominant in the past, won last year, obviously, and so seeing your rivals, DeTulio, Norberg, especially the 2 of the guys that you're really going up against in the championship, have strong weekends, and obviously you had a down weekend at MCC. Do you think you could bounce back here in Newcastle and walk away with the championship? And then, kind of how you're feeling heading into it.
Yeah, no, I think like how you said, our pace is going to be good. I don't see us, struggling to crack into the top 10 there. We showed great pace there. We've won against, one of the greatest, drivers in the world was Joe, who came out here, and we beat Ryan, which is, a top driver here in the States. So I'm pretty confident going into it, that our pace is going to be good. It's not going to be an easy win. It's never really super easy on besides a wicked weekend at Badger, but that's rare for somebody like me to go out there and win everything on that level that we're racing at. But I don't. It's not going to be easy because you're going to have people who are in second and third in the championship standings that want to have a crack at to go and win. I know Alessandro is going to be going to cars soon, and this is his last effort to go and get a whole belt underneath his back to go and win. And if he does win, I mean, kudos to him. But we're not going to make it easy for anybody. But like I said, I think we are really fast at SCUSA. My confidence is pretty high going into it. But I just know it's going to be pretty vicious going the last round and having everybody come closer in the points, to go and have a crack at to go and win. Not having the greatest result at the last race for USPK has brought everybody up closer, but I'm still pretty confident going into this last race that hopefully we can wrap up this title.
What would it mean to you guys? I mean, for you specifically, and obviously the speed guys put so much effort into it all. What would it mean to get it done at Newcastle?
That would be insane. It'd be just probably hugging, crying, going crazy on how much effort that we put into our X30 senior group. I feel like all of our X30 seniors and the people who go and run our engines have been doing a phenomenal job, and our power has been great, and they've been going crazy back at the shop, making everything go as fast as they possibly can go and make it. You're having Mario on the dyno, Alex is there on the dyno as well. You're having Mike Speed look over things, which he used to be back at Ocala Grand Prix. He used to be on the dyno nonstop. That was his bread and butter, was getting the motors being as fast as possible. So, those three there just, they do everything they can possibly do to go and make people win. They have so much heart that gets put into all this, so much effort. And, if I ended up going and winning this series, it would be massive for everybody. And I know at the SCUSA race, we had Diego ended up winning it. And we had, I think, Jackson finished second, I think, in the championship standings. And if we come across another win for in junior and senior for the championship, that'd be huge.
Yeah, and I know you have a lot of people behind you. I think all the way back from Gary Willis at the start of your days when you and Ryan were kind of teammates. And I guess, how much does it mean to have guys that have seen you grow through the sport kind of be behind you every step of the way?
Yeah, no, that's an amazing feeling. Just like how you said, me and Ryan racing, against each other our whole life, and we were kind of taught by the same guy, growing up. And Gary's always, he wants both of us to go and win. There's not one person who wants to go and win more. It's just, I want you guys both to go out there and race as hard as you possibly can, and whoever wins is the guy who just won. There's not really to go and say much more about that. But for the teams who we were all with, I mean, everybody who we race with and race for, I mean, they want us to go and win because, like, hey, this guy traveled through our little camp and everything, and he's won with us. And next thing you know, when we're trying to go somewhere else, and everybody shakes hands and, okay, I hope you have a good race, good series, whoever with you're racing for next year. And I mean, everybody wants us to go and try to go and win. I feel like it's awesome because even people who I've raced with and they or raced for in the past, they'll come to the racetrack and go and work on somebody's kart or whatever because they love the sport so much. And I see them every single weekend. Hey, they shake my hand. Hey, I really hope you're gonna win this weekend. I miss having you go and be with us and everything. I really hope you an awesome job. It's probably the same for Ryan. He probably go and says, hey, go and do your best and try to get this win.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. I still remember last year Winter Series when you won at Homestead. I still don't think I've seen that many people non-related to your team excited over a victory. Uh, maybe over Beck's win as well. But other than
Right.
that, I think you winning last year Winter Series that kind of kicked off this 2 year stretch where you've been really really strong was super cool. And Caleb, were you there for that one? I don't remember if you
I
were for
wasn't. I,
Homestead,
I, I wasn't there for Austin's.
but
I was there
Emory,
for the one at Newcastle,
yeah,
and that was also I guess another big one in
yeah,
regular season for Austin.
yeah. I
Right.
mean, you seem to be kind of a fan favorite. Honestly, I think you're one of our the 3 or 5 fan favorites on the racetrack. Does it feel like that for you?
Yeah, no, I'm 100%. And I felt it when my first race back when we were at Charlotte. I think I qualified on pole or whatever. I had pretty good racing, and I was starting on pole for the main event, like the first race back for me in X30 since like 2019. And like literally every single person was just like, I hope you go and win, I really do, and hope you go and finish well. And just like everybody was coming up to me and, shaking my hand, pat on the back before I went out there. I was starting to get like choked up. I'm like, wow, I'm like, I haven't been back in so long. And, from seeing me come out here and, and do well, everybody was just, it was awesome. A super warm feeling. And, coming back from like the Sousa Winter Series when I went and won, there was people who I, didn't even really know that were just giving me hugs and all that. Oh, you drove an awesome race. That was amazing. And, I think they like to see another face, who grew up in the same kind of, time frame as Ryan to go out there and win. And they feel like that's just a different, it's a big change, because Ryan, had a great career his whole entire life, and having somebody else go out there and, beat him and go and win, and, just a change of face makes the crowd go crazy because now it stirs the whole pot on, the series going in, on round whatever after that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good
that
point.
race in Mooresville was the 2-2 race, right?
It was.
Oh
That
my,
was
Fun times. That,
did you say that the
that was the
2-2 race, right?
bet you had with Weinberg
yes,
playing that weekend, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. That was that weekend. Yeah, I think I finished third. I think that race because I didn't have the pace for Ryan. Hold on, my dog's coming in here barging in. But Weinberg was super fast. Like he was fast all weekend, and I was just like we were on the same team at that point in time, and um, I saw him catching me, and he was laying some pretty like wicked times. And after that, and I pointed him by. I'm like, hey, if we're gonna have anything for a fight at all for to go and win, I'm like, he's gonna be the guy to go and fight against Ryan, and have the pace to go and be up with him and go and block or whatever because he was that driver at the point in time to say, hey, we don't want Ryan to win. We're gonna go up there, we're gonna block, do whatever possibly we can go and do to go and win. And that was the only option I go and had to go and let him by. I said, hey, you go and catch him. You go and get a little scruffle going on, and I'll be up there coming on lap 20, and hopefully I can go and get this W. But that was the only way possible. But yeah, that was the 2-2 race. And then he ended up beating me, and we got a 2-2.
That it's so
Out of
funny
where?
you actually. It's so funny you bring that up because uh, I'm I'm here at Lime Rock with Skip Barber, and actually one of the drivers that I was instructing today was Caleb Campbell, and he was like, "Oh, do you ever see this picture of Austin Garrison wearing the tutu?" And I was like, "I've actually never seen that before." That's actually really funny that you bring that up.
Yep. He says,
There-
if I go and beat you, you got to wear it. I'm like, all right, that ain't going to happen. And they ended up beating me. I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks. Awesome.
There's some
We got a few more
there's
of
also
those.
some old pictures of you as well. I think I don't know who it was or what it was on. Oh, it was actually on Gary's Facebook. You and Ryan, like way back in the day, 2012, I think,
Yep.
as well back then. So that was, I guess, cool to see as well.
Yeah, that was at 2012. That was when Team Felon was just starting, as was Gary's team is now, his Team Felon. And that was at Ocala, I think. We used to park at this tree that was way out back. You kind of keep going around and venture around to the other opposite side of the racetrack. There was like a massive tree that was there, and we didn't put up any tents or anything. We basically pulled our carts underneath that tree because there was shade. Had a couple toolboxes, and it was just everybody's dad there. And we got a Publix, got a box of chicken wings and all that, and just hang out and everything. And that's where it all started, was at OGP underneath that little tree there.
How did you, I guess, get involved with Gary Willis like early on?
So my dad has known Gary since he was 5. They grew up with each other since first grade or preschool. I think they even met. So he's known my dad for forever, and he got my dad into karting. My dad started karting, I think, when he was my age, and Gary has been doing it, since I think he was in his earlier 20s. Got my dad into it, and they were just, hitting up this track in Naples. That's an hour and a half away from me, and after that, once I turned 5 and I seen a bunch of trophies that were around the house, and I'm like, yeah, I want a trophy. That's pretty flashy. I want to go out there and get one of those. And then after that, when I turned 5, and I just was at the racetrack nonstop at Naples. I think it was like a 45-second lap in a kid kart, so you can only imagine what they're running in, like a Yamaha pipe. I think it was like maybe in the high 20s, maybe low 30s. I forget. It was so long ago. So I was there for nonstop, just putting down laps. And then after I got older and went to ADCC Comer, that's when kind of Gary went on board a little bit more than what he did when I was 5, because when you're 5, it's just your dad tells you follow the black rubber line around the racetrack. That's where you got to drive, and that's kind of like, if I ever see a kid car, yeah, just follow that black line. You're gonna be fast as you can doing that. And yeah, once I was in Comer, which is kind of like the mini that we have today, he just kind of trained me all the way up until I was in junior. And then when we were at the later part in mini, is when I think Ryan was with us as well, and he was coaching everybody. He was driver coach for our whole entire team that we had. We had like 6 guys or 7 guys that were with us, and once we got older and kind of got sponsored, and here we are now.
I've actually heard stories from Christian Toro saying that him and Gary would literally work on.
Oh yeah, he was there. Yep, and Chuck. Yeah, I was old.
Yeah,
Chuck.
every so what I heard from actually Christian was saying that they would, I guess, all you guys would come in, and him and Gary would go around to everybody's go-kart, work on everybody's go-kart, just the 2 of them, and then send all you guys back out onto the racetrack. And funny enough, they actually said Ryan was kind of the hardest one to work with at that time, and they said you were the easiest, actually. So funny enough.
I wasn't so much of a complainer. Like, is it good? Good enough. All right, here, go move up the chain and go and get out there. But yeah, I remember when Gary hired Christian to go and come on full boat running, even at the national events, but like a lot of local events, he was there, and yeah, they just worked on everything, and he made those 2 guys made the tent keep rolling.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're both awesome. I know Christian as well for forever. Yeah, he's for sure one of the parts of Team Fallon when we first started. He was there since the absolute start, basically.
Yeah.
So we're all good buddies on those terms.
Austin, I got one more thing here, because I find it interesting when I talk to drivers who are, I'd say, veterans, close to masters. Just messing with you, but veterans in senior especially. Do you ever feel like, and obviously you can say no, but do you ever feel like watching a lot of young drivers, young talents, go from junior to senior rank, at 14, 15 years old? Because we're seeing a lot of that nowadays. We saw it this past weekend. We saw McMurray. We saw Austin Olds. He's been a senior before, and McMurray has been driving at club stuff. But on the national level, you see all these young drivers. Do you ever feel like, I don't want to say an obligation, but as somebody who's been in the senior field for quite some time, do you ever try to take the time to go talk to them and kind of tell them, like, here, listen, this is how we race in the pro side of things, or do you just let them kind of figure it out themselves?
I haven't. I like you said, I've never raced against McMurray, and I haven't talked to Olds really at all. But
in general, when you see young drivers come through, do you ever feel like you should go and be like, hey, listen, this is how we roll up here, or do you want them to just kind of go out there and learn the ropes themselves like you had to do?
I haven't, but if they're consistently being upfront with us, like running with us in the heat races, and they're like top 5, top 6, then yeah, I will go and tell them, hey, this is the way we kind of go and do things. We don't really go ballistic how other people do in junior and all that up front. But I honestly haven't. And I think at my age and everything, and being a veteran and senior, for sure, I probably even should have went up there and talked to him like, hey, listen, you gotta, when you're starting up front here, you got to go and block a little bit harder here, or do this over here, because I know Mick Murray was kind of having issues with that. At the start, he was just falling super far back. I was getting around him super quick to really know what was going on with him. And like Old showed pretty good speed and all that, but like I said, I really know what was going on his behalf on the first opening laps. But I really haven't talked to too many drivers that were young to go and starting up in the front with us. But definitely, if they're going to be their first moving up, like Turner Brown or whatever, somebody like that who's going to be fast and senior as well, for sure. Talking to him of the way we kind of go and drive and not go ballistic or go crazy and just be patient will help him out a lot, not ruin people's races.
Yeah.
I got one more fun one for you here, because you mentioned Chico Brown. I don't know if you heard his interview. He said that he sings to Katy Perry to stay focused through his races. I don't know if you heard that or not, but this is true. He does do this. Do you have any superstitions? I know we've spoken to Overbeck, and he kind of doesn't wear the BJR suit because it brings bad luck. He wears the blue suit. Do you have anything that stuck with you throughout your career?
Not anymore because I'm old, but I did when I was younger. It was gloves. It was gloves that I always went and changed because I thought that if gloves had a certain amount of races on, then I had a really bad race with this pair of gloves, I would throw those gloves away and get brand new gloves. Because sometimes the same pair, sometimes it'd be a Sparko white glove, and I would have a bad race with them. I'm like, yeah, I use them for practice and get a brand new pair for the race. But I was superstitious on that. But after that, when I point in time where I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna wear these gloves because it rained and I wore those other gloves, and I ended up winning with the bad gloves. And I'm like, you know what? I think I'm okay on all that. I'm just gonna wear whatever. But my superstition has grown to little to none now. But I did back in the day when I was growing up. For sure, I was superstitious. Now, not so much.
Yeah, I think us race car drivers always just try to find excuses for maybe bad performances. I know I've done that a couple of times. I think that's it from the three of us, from our boys here at Grid Talk. We always give this time to kind of give our guests the chance to go out there and shout out, what they got coming up next. We know you're going to be at TSRS DKC this weekend. You're flying out tomorrow. What can we expect from you the rest of the year? What race do you have coming up? Maybe some Racecraft stuff with you and your team. Floor is yours.
Yep. Super excited to go out there tomorrow and to Texas and work in 118-degree weather. But I love
nothing, dude.
Yeah. But I love the crowd who we work with. I love everybody underneath there. They're super easy to go and work with, which I'm excited to go and be with these guys. I haven't seen them in a while. So I'm pretty excited on that. And then right after that, we go to a local race with Racecraft Driver Development in Orlando. We have a local race going on there on Saturday and Sunday. I think it's a doubleheader again going on next week. And, we're going to have a couple of drivers for that, which is going to be great. And then after that, I think it's Stars or something. We go to Stars for Charlotte. Mm-hmm. And I've been working with Jackson Wolney, which I always like working with Jackson and Senior. Not really too sure who else we're going to have in Senior. I'm going to go and ask Mike if there's anybody lined up. But always great working with Jackson. He's a really great kid. I love his family. They're really great people. He's doing a really great job in Senior as well. I think he's going to go and race Senior at the IME Grands going on here in a few weeks, whenever it is, a month. I don't know, something like that. But besides that, yep, we got USPKS coming up, and for sure go and try to salvage that title. And then after that, I think we just have a lot of driver coaching is going to be going on after that, because I think after the Stars event and USPKS, kind of when it calms down for me a little bit, and then we're going to be doing a lot of racecraft driver development after that, where I'm trying to go and push this, as hard as I possibly can. My website's finished and everything, so that'll be airing here in a few days. So after that, it's going to be working on drivers, getting them ready for, the last event in Stars, or, the last event for Supernats. So we'll go and see where it all goes, and hopefully it all goes well.
Sounds great, buddy. Thank you for joining the show, Austin Garrison. Apologies for on my end for my technical difficulties, and obviously you had some sort of animal unplugged your Wi-Fi. I guess maybe
probably my dog went and just ripped something out in the living room. Who knows? He gets all fired up.
Well, thank you, bud. Thank you for joining the show. That's been Austin Garrison. We appreciate you and your time here. We'll hopefully see you at the track. Obviously, Caleb's going to see you at the track next week, and then we'll see you.
I'll see you this weekend.
Probably. All right. Yeah. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
See you, boys. See you, buddy.
All right. Later.
All right. That's Austin Garrison. When we come back, it's our third and final segment of the show. We're going to talk a little bit about schedules on the national scene and kind of what we think some series should do and where they should take their series next year for the schedules.
Brandon, why are there all these charges for just over $200 from Acceleration Kart Racing's website?
That's because AKR gives you free shipping on orders of $200 or more within the continental U.S.
Okay, but I thought you were just getting a pair of gloves. That's what, $70?
But if I'm getting a new pair of gloves, I might as well get a new pair of shoes to match. And then on top of that, I'll get a neck brace because with the shipping, it's basically free.
Yeah, I do not think the math checks out on that.
Everything you need, all in one place and shipped to your door for free for orders of $200 or more. Exclusions apply. Spend responsibly. Shop AKR.com.
Well, we temporarily lost Alex for 1 second. Brandon. I
love that.
All right.
I'm back.
Caleb.
Hey.
Caleb.
Yes.
Are you feeling better after DKC?
I am. I'm feeling way better, and I'll be back there. I'm not racing Liam, unfortunately, but I do owe Liam an interview because he did ask for one at the end of the day Saturday, and then I went in to get changed, and that's when I realized my wrist was hurting a lot. So I just wanted to get out of the track as soon as possible because I was in a lot of pain. But I owe Liam an interview. I'll see him this weekend, hopefully to give him that. But I'm not racing. I'm announcing. Staying where I belong. And funny enough that Austin was talking about superstitions. I had superstitions up until before I got into the kart, or I guess up until I flipped. But like I got into the kart and I was like, yeah, I always get in the left side. And then after that weekend, I kind of realized that the only race or session that I got in to my go-kart on the left hand side was that main event, and I actually flipped. So I'm never doing that again. I'm just getting in where I guess that is a superstition. Anyways.
Wait.
You got in the cart from the right side?
Yeah,
Like all
you step in on the right?
In the pre-final, yeah.
I think in 11 years of
that's gotta
karting,
be
I think I've
backwards.
done that maybe like
I don't know. I think
I've
got
done
in
it maybe
the right
2
side.
or 3 times.
I got in through the right side and nothing happened. I fought for the lead, finished second, and then in the main event, I got in on the left side, and because I was by the barrier. And yeah, I don't know.
Your engine's on the right side, no?
Yeah.
So
I just went in like at the front of it. I don't know.
This guy, man.
I don't know.
All right.
That's crazy.
Anyways, there's a lot more important stuff on our schedule right now.
Let's shift focus here. All right. Let's talk schedules. We mentioned it with Garrison, but I want to hear from you guys, and I'll obviously chime in as well because I have a couple things to say about it. I feel as though, and I think Series has done a good job, I'd say recently, in kind of picking schedules with racetracks that fit kind of the mold for where most of their customer base is from. I know the West Coast guys kind of get screwed a little bit just because there's not many tracks up there besides Utah. Now we have K1 circuit, which is awesome. But again, still not many. I'd say the most west that we go really is honestly Texas, which is central.
What's wrong
right?
with
And
that?
then my bad, bro. My bad.
I'm kidding, bro.
And
Let's
then
see.
obviously we have Colorado karting circuit as well coming back into the mix, which will be fantastic when it's fully ready for national level racing. Hopefully by 2026 would be phenomenal. So my question to you guys, and I'll start with you here, Emory, having raced nationally, I'd say for quite some time, regionally as well. Do you feel like you've been to the same racetracks quite often, and where would you like to see series go next year and in the future?
Yeah. I mean, look, Alex, over the past few years, I've been to Newcastle almost 20 times between working and racing, and a couple times just practicing. But ultimately, almost almost 15 races myself at Newcastle, and I'm not a full-time national driver most of that time. I don't even want to say how many laps I've done at Trackhouse because that's my home track, but there's 2 to 3 races every single year. In fact, next year looks slated for probably only 2 national races, which would be the lowest that they've had since I think 2014, 2015. So that's pretty insane. MCC this year, we basically had 5 races there in 8 weekends that we were broadcasting. That's insane. So I think that there's definitely an overabundance of tracks. They're great tracks, mind you. Like they're staples of the national
Absolutely.
calendar. But I think when each series has their own individual identity, or when they all kind of overlap on the tracks that they go to, it makes it tough to establish that much of a individual identity. And I think I'm excited to see next year because I think we're gonna see some of that uh, differing sites within series. I know USPCast announced they're going to Daytona first. I think that's an interesting move. I think it's a good potential track to start with. We know that Stars has an opening in the third slot, and we know Skusa has the chance to kind of go to new tracks with their layout too. So with starting with Stars, their third event, and mind you, for Stars, what they've been very good at, in my opinion, is branding each individual event. They've made each event kind of a show in itself. Outside of NJMP, we don't talk about that fateful weekend, but for the most part, every single weekend for Stars that they've gone to, it's been kind of a cool, unique event. And I think I have one proposal for next year for them. Bring back Shawano. I think it's time. It's been 9 years since we've gone to Shawano, Wisconsin. It is the best track on the national circuit to go to that we don't go to at the moment. In terms of the actual track, it's really good. It's very flowing. It's got elevation change for days, a good straightaway downhill section, the tons of passing opportunities, runs good in a shifter, runs good in X30. I think the KA racing would be extremely fun, knowing what I know from the Yamaha days way back in 2015 and 2014. I mean, for Shawano, assuming the ownership group has interest in bringing national karting back, which from kind of the rumblings that I've heard seems to be the case, I think there's no better track out there to go back to. And people complain about the distance. They say that it's 15 hours from North Carolina, 7 to 8 hours away from the Midwest. Look, we go to Miami twice every single winter. That's 13 hours away from North Carolina. North Carolina is in the South. That's even more for the guys in the Midwest. One race is kind of out there some ways. But enough of my Shawano soapboxing. I think my opinion on that has been pretty strong for a while. Beyond that, I think we need to see kind of more unique events. I know that the club series and the club, like the local drivers, is an important thing to consider when it comes to racetracks, as well as the ease of facilities, like we see with Newcastle and Trackhouse having banquet halls and having kind of easier parking and a more established sort of circuit map. But ultimately, when you end up going to tracks like a Shawano, I think Alex in a second is going to bring up another Midwest track that we could potentially be going to. And hey, I'll say K1 when we get K1, when we get enough racing under K1 to kind of see how it races. I think we go to California. I don't know if that's a Stars thing or a USPCast thing, but SCUSA has consistently had the largest West Coast base dating back to the start of dating back to really the start of the series of Pro Tour back in 2010. I think it's their place to go to It's their place to go back to the West Coast. I think we're going to see it in the future with K1. I'm hoping Stars goes to Shawano. And hey, for Kyle Tommy in the comments, Nationals Trackhouse Club V 2.0, that's fine. If we had every single national race at Trackhouse, I wouldn't complain, but I think it would hurt the product. And I think it's time to bring some new unique tracks into the calendar. Start it with Shawano at Stars. Let's see some Norway. Let's see some Pittsburgh. And ultimately, let's see some races on the West Coast, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of agree with that. Seeing some new stuff. I'm also an advocate for the South. I'm an advocate for what we have in Texas. I'm an advocate for NOLA Motorsports Park as well. That's a really nice facility out there that we went to this year. That can hold a national race. We saw us have a national race there not too long ago with, I believe it was SCUSA. It was SCUSA indeed. So, let's go back to either NOLA, Amarillo Kart Complex, making some adjustments to their racetrack as well. Kyle Yuchinski's done a great job with that entire facility. Amarillo Kart Complex, Speed Sports Racing Park, DKC, we'll see how this weekend goes, but I think they can get themselves back in the mix, maybe. If we combine both of the tracks, I think maybe the track layout we have now is probably a little too small for a national race. But if you combine, I think the rental kart track and the main one that they have right now could be interesting. And as well for the stuff in out west, Colorado, also a good one, and K1. There's Grand Junction as well. I can go on and on and on with tracks and list of names and whatnot. But I think for all national series, I think being unique is going to be important. There you have Dallas Karting Complex saying they are ready. So yeah, I'm an advocate for what we have here in Texas. I'm an advocate for everything else, but I think in order for our true national series to really make it worth the while for the guys out west, like Gary Carlson was saying, that they need, it's hard for them to ship their stuff out every single weekend. I think we make it fair for everybody and either have one race in the South, one race out west, one race in the East, and then maybe one in Florida would be good. You can do, and I'm spitballing here, and this is like complete spitballing, but if you want to, stay true, we can do MCC or Newcastle or Trackhouse. Then we could go Florida to whichever three of the Floridas, whatever we have here down, I guess, in the South with NOLA, DKC, Speed Sports, or even Amarillo or Grand Junction or whatnot, But I think having a little bit of mix for the national series to go kind of everywhere would be fair for all parties, nonetheless.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point with, I think Amarillo is a great option. If we're talking about tracks that we don't see on the national scene, right? We saw Speed Sports. I think Speed Sports is a phenomenal racetrack, though. Speed Sports would be a great choice for Stars. I think Amarillo is a great choice. I think DKC is a great choice. So I think any of the Texas tracks are actually a great pick for tracks that we don't see as often in comparison to a Trackhouse, a Newcastle, an MCC. And I love all three of those racetracks. They are staples, like Emory said, on the national calendar. This is strictly for if series. I'm going to reiterate what Emory said again. Great point. To create an identity rather than almost feeling like you're going to the same thing three times, right? In terms of the national level series with the same drivers almost. I'd say especially with SCUSA Pro Tour and New Speed Gas, you almost have the same drivers in each class. And then you're going to the same racetracks almost. And again, here for Stars, I'm going to pull it up one more time here. We have, Charlotte Motor Speedway, Newcastle, Trackhouse, three tracks that we went to this year for Stars. So the only difference is going to be that third race compared to what we saw this year in the scheduling. So I really do hope that they actually, and I know they're taking, and I give Stars 100% credit for this, that they are active in their Discord, actively seeking out, and on their Instagram and all the social media pages, actively seeking out what racetracks they would want their customer base to go out there and be a part of. So this is smart stuff from Stars, and I think this is what we should see, and we're going to probably see other series do the same sort of thing. I'm going to throw another track. Emory already alluded to it. I think Norway, Illinois would be phenomenal. Concept haulers. It got repaved. That track, if you haven't been to it, it's actually a lot of fun. And if you ever drove it in kit car, I unfortunately did not drive it in kit car. I actually never raced in kit car. I started in micro, but it has the coolest pit exit of all time. You literally drive through a tunnel, and it's the coolest thing ever. And so just for that, I think Star should go there and then start a kit kart class just so we can have that.
I would pay money to see a Diego Ramos on board in a kid kart. like, like that's the intro to the weekend.
Yeah.
But yeah, so constant haulers I think is actually it's a good option.
Yeah.
Pit space is there. Location base is not bad, but pit space is there. And then yeah, I think the Dallas stuff is good. I think Amarillo, I think Speed Sports is fine. The Florida scene, sorry, my eyes are like watering up here. I don't know why that is happening to me right now.
So
I think
emotional about this.
I'm
The
emotional
Norway
about
take was too hot.
No, I think it's hot in this hotel and I'm sweating and I think it's
Yeah.
gotten in my eye. But nonetheless, you mentioned Florida. I think we stick to the first 3 months of the year, mainly because it does get really hot down here. I know it gets hot in Texas as well, but
And
I think
yeah,
we do have stuff. Oh my god, it looks like I'm crying right now. This is so bad. But I literally am. It's because I got sweat in my eye.
yeah.
But there's a lot of tracks we can go to, and then once the West Coast stuff really becomes a fair, place to go for national series. So hopefully 2026 is when K1 will be fully ready. I don't think next year it's going to be a national hosted track. I could be completely wrong. Again, we have no idea what USPKS or SCUSA are going to come out with. But here we have our start schedule basically complete, and then Colorado karting circuit. I keep saying it, but I think I would love in 2026 to see both those racetracks on a calendar.
Yeah.
On the national scene. Obviously, on the regional side, club side, we're going to see it. But on the national scene, I'd love to see those two tracks. I want to see Utah back. Utah is
Yeah.
such a good karting track, and I know I'm naming Central and West Coast tracks, but for all my Central and West Coast located people watching the show right now, they're probably loving this. I think Kaleb was right. It seems as though and most of the customer base is East Coast to Texas max,
For sure.
right? But we do have our West Coast guys. We have GFC. We have so many teams that are located West Coast, so many drivers that maybe you don't even realize are West Coast. And all of a sudden you go to the entry list and it says California, Vegas, Oregon. All of a sudden it's like, oh my God, these guys really make the journey down here. And they don't say anything about it. Why do us East Coast guys go over there and complain when we go West once a year? So I think you're onto something there where if you want to have a 4-race season, let's go north, south, east, central, right?
Yeah, but it also I guess the last thing that I'll add to this, it has to make sense. Like
Obviously, yeah.
we really can't be because nobody can really afford this. We can't afford to go 3 days out west to California and then have to turn around and come back to the south for a race, in 2-3 weeks. It has to make sense for I think everybody to either move somewhere and be able to go out there and be able to leave their stuff there, like we were able to do this year with either Homestead, with Rock, and I think everybody has to come together and put everything in a general close area and not have everybody like, let's say USPKS has a race in Florida, right? And Stars is going to do one out in I'm just spitballing here, but they're going to do one out in Oregon. That's kind of unfair to everybody who wants to do everything and wants to go out there and race. So it has to make sense. And I think we need to see a little bit of what we saw this year, where all the series kind of come together and make it make sense for the customers. Cause that's what we do it for. Without customers, the series are nothing. We are nothing. And the sport, unfortunately, is nothing. So I think we had great numbers this year because of how, everything was kind of on the same page and allowed us to kind of bounce around. And yeah, it got repetitive at some point, but it worked out. But again, I think in the end, we need to make it make sense and have a flowing, like I always call this sport kind of like a traveling circus. We go everywhere together and everybody sees each other everywhere. And, it is what it is. And we all have to kind of work together and find our way to move somewhere together and make it all flow, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So I'm going to push back a little bit on the series working together because I think that they should and I think have choreographed together on the dates. As far as the travel goes, though, pretty much no matter what you do from series to series, you're going to have pretty egregious travel numbers, right? Because ultimately the factor that we really don't talk enough about as kart chaser or in general when it comes to national scene is the overlap between the local and regional series and the national series, right?
Yeah.
I remember when Alex and I were down in Florida last year, and this year was a little bit more spaced out. But we were talking to the Nash guys, I think it was, and they were talking about how they basically had to completely split their approach because they had one set of guys, one set of mechanics, one set of driver coaches that were in Florida, and one trailer that was in Florida, and another trailer that was across the country getting ready for testing for the Pro Kart Challenge, right? And naturally, the lower budgeted teams may not have that kind of numbers in their staff and in their trailer. And no matter what happens, someone out there, we run too many races across the country for there not to be scheduling difficulties. I do agree that I think that the series should kind of choreograph the dates, but as far as kind of organizing the races to go weekend after weekend after weekend at the same place, I think that we already see, in my opinion, we see some of the downfalls of that, where even if you do that, you still have one weekend a month basically where there's excessive travel for someone. Someone's kind of getting the short end of the stick, whether it be the teams that are out west are having to go all the way across to Indiana and then 2 weekends later come all the way back for a club race and kind of divide and conquer. So for me, I think that it comes down to ultimately having a more sort of unique identity for each series, right? And I wanted to, before we end this episode, I have kind of a game that I want us to play, or more of like a scenario game. So there's three of us. There's three big series. There's three kind of different points on the schedule that we've got for each series, right? Let's put ourselves for the next 2 to 3 years as a series. So, Alex, do you have any of the three that you have in mind that you would want to schedule out for the next 3 years?
I'll be stars.
Kaleb, you got a preference?
Well, USPKS comes to Texas, so I guess I'll be USPKS.
All right. Well, I'll work on SCUSA then. So, what I want from you boys is I want one thing that you really like about the current calendar and its schedule for 2024. So, like, it could be a race, it could be the schedule format. One thing that you really want to change going forward that you think that the series needs to kind of reformat, and and kind of like a brand identity statement. Where do you see like their kind of unique value from scheduling coming in 3 years? Alex, I know it's a lot to throw at you, but I'm going to start with you on the star side of things.
Yeah, okay. What I like, it makes sense. Their schedules kind of have always been in the same sort of location, right? This year we had Charlotte, we had Newcastle, MCC, and we're gonna have Trackhouse for a night fight this year. Next year, same sort of deal. Charlotte, Newcastle, to be announced, and then Trackhouse. So they make sense location wise. It's people know what to expect, which is good. You can kind of plan for it and whatnot. And they're safe racetracks in terms of you as a series, at least one other series is going to go there. And so, like Emory said, you almost don't have to plan for the fact that the series is going to band together because you could almost expect that we're going to go to Trackhouse, we're going to go to a Newcastle, we're going to go to the MCCs of the world. I want to give Stars credit here as well. Going to Charlotte Motor Speedway this year and then again next year, I think it's an underrated racetrack. So I'm happy for that. I think North Carolina getting 2 racetracks, it is maybe a talking point, but nonetheless, they're 2 amazing racetracks. So you can't fault North Carolina for having 2 amazing racetracks, just like how we go to Florida all the time. I know it's in the winter, so that's why we have to come here. But we go to Florida a lot. You can't fault series for going to Florida during the winter. So I can't fault Stars for choosing
Can't stand this guy, dude.
choosing North Carolina to go to. I think on that same breath, though, the thing that I would maybe think of, one con, so to speak, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it is a repetitive schedule from last year. All right, only changing one track, and this is not just on Stars. I've seen most series do this just because it's the safe thing to do. right? Why would you ever pan away from what works? You know the tracks that work. You know the tracks that get the most entries. You have all the data points. Why would you ever go to an unknown track? Why would you go to a track that last year got less numbers than Newcastle or Trackhouse? To me, that's where, like we were talking about, the planning comes into play, the reaching out, being active with your customer base, like in the Discords, in the social medias of where you want to see them go the following year. Now, that being said, I think Stars does a great job on the media side, on the marketing side of things. They really, just like all series, but Stars has found their niche, so to speak, where they have, like you were saying, Kaleb, with the traveling circus, they have their group that will always be
New kids on
Stars.
the block.
Stars, exactly, and they're growing. That series is constantly growing from where they were 3 years ago to what they are now. I'm incredibly proud of what Christian Marsh has done, Joe Janowski, and the rest of that crew
Yeah.
have done with the Stars Championship Series, and it has become one of the 3 headline national
Yeah.
series. And it's because of what they do behind the scenes, not even the tracks they go to, not even the classes that they pick.
Yeah.
They're risk takers, and that's awesome. They're the first national series to bring in OKN and OKNJ.
Yeah.
That's a risk, and it's working out for them. And that's why that is a continuously growing series. Having said that, because they're risk takers and because they have this incredible fan base, I want to see risks in the schedule. I want to see them go out there and go to tracks that we don't go to. Obviously, it has to make sense. Like you said, Kaleb, we can't just
Yeah.
we're throwing it out there. We, in a perfect world, yeah, let's go north, south, east, west, right? But like at the end of the day, it's a business. You're gonna lose entries if you do that. At the end of the day, right? Unless you're a driver who's in the championship hunt. But if you can make it make sense and you can find a regional race that happens to be at, I don't know, K1 circuit, for example. Let's say they don't want to go there just because it's West Coast, but you find Pro Car Challenge the week before. Maybe you find a reason to have teams go there because you could park your trailer there for Pro Car Challenge, then you go to Stars the following week, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So I get that's still like the one fear of going that far west when Stars is specifically really a central, more eastern
East.
sort of, yeah. So yeah, they don't even really go central. The most central we go is Newcastle, or MCC, I guess. No, Newcastle would have been it. So
Newcastle's more
I would
central.
love,
This guy doesn't know his geography, Emery.
My bad, bro.
It's unacceptable.
It's been a long night.
All right, proceed. I'm like waiting to spitball here.
All right. So I would love to see them. If we don't want to go any more than Newcastle, that's fine. But let's go to NOLA. Let's go. If you want to go to Texas, let's do Amarillo. Let's go DKC. Let's even go Speed Sports. I know USPKS has been there. I want to see Stars do something like that.
Yeah.
Let's go to Norway. Let's go. I don't know, Northeast. I mean,
bring out the whole ocean, man. Bring out the whole.
Let's go to OVRP. Let's go to OVRP, bro. Let's do something different. Maybe
AG and J.
I'd be down.
I get it, bro. I get it. I get your point. My turn now.
All right. My bad. All right.
I'm tired of listening.
It's your turn, bro.
Kaleb's hungry.
Enough about Stars, bro. My turn. I'm USPKS. All right. I like how we're mixing it up. Daytona next year. I'm not gonna lie, I doubted it at first, but now I'm excited to go there. I think Newcastle is always a marquee event, and Trackhouse as well. And I like how we kind of ventured out south and west out here to Texas. Haven't seen that in quite some time, and I think they were the first ones to do it. To come kind of start inching their way back here to the left-hand side of the U.S. map. So I like that as well a lot. And I like how many different people kind of we see across the year. I like going to Wisconsin. Wisconsin was great, and that's where USPK started, and sticking to the roots like Stars did is great as well. But I really like the difference in USPKs, how we're kind of everywhere. How we get to go everywhere, and we're in Wisconsin, either Road America or Badger Kart Club, and we go to some great tracks that all of us doubt. We all doubted Badger Kart Club at the start of the year. Like, don't say you didn't, but or maybe Emory didn't, but some people out there definitely doubted Badger Kart Club. And it turned out to be great. It was a great weekend for racing, and I enjoyed it. And being in Wisconsin was great. And I'd love to go back to Wisconsin. I'd love to come back to Texas, whether it's an hour down the road at Speed Sports where I get a weekend at home and I don't have to fly out. I don't have to drive.
Of course, you want to go to Texas, bro.
Hey, and I don't have to fly out anywhere. Or I don't have to drive more than 4 hours.
Hey,
I'd
4
love
races
that.
in Texas.
Huh?
4
was that?
races in Texas.
Yeah,
I said 4 races in Texas.
we have TSRs, so that'll take care of it. But it's just like I like going everywhere is what I like. And to the other part of it, where I guess USPKS can grow. One, I think the video for race control is super important. SCUSA has it, Stars has it, and I think USPKS is the only one that doesn't have the actual video system up and for race control, and I think that's really a must now. The sport evolves, and we're all evolving. Technology's evolving, and I think that's the last thing for the race control to kind of get up there. And we talked about Stars kind of being the new kids on the block. Talked about SCUSA kind of making their schedule look a little bit different as well this year. And bringing either more money or whatnot. I think for USPKS, one, video, and two, I think we need to freshen it up just a little bit, because I feel like since the start of the series, it's been kind of a little bit of the same from the start, and kind of maybe gets a tad bit repetitive. And I think having something fresh or a fresh aspect to it would be super cool and bring people to come back out. I'm not going to hide the fact that there was only 200. I don't even know if we hit the 200 mark at MCC for USPKS this year. The K senior field was kind of small, so I think if you want to get people to come back out, we got to freshen it up, get people to come out, give, and this goes to, I guess, all three. Make something about your series so unique where you make people want to come out. Make something different about your series where you want people to be like, all right, I want to go here, and I want to go up here to Stars because Stars has this that these two other guys don't. But also USPK has whatever that SCUSA and Stars don't have, and SCUSA either has the Super Nationals or whatever. I want to go to SCUSA because they have this. Make something unique about each three of the series that they have that the other two don't. Create an identity for yourself to bring people out. So I think that's the only thing that USPKS, I guess, really needs, and what I wanted to see from the schedule and what I've loved about it so far.
Got you. Well, that leaves me with the SCUSA Pro Tour. First off, I think one of the biggest things that Pro Tour has done right over the years, and what they have as an advantage, is when you think of an American karting series, whether you're in Europe, whether you're in the U.S., whether you've been in karting for 30 years or for 2 years, the most prestigious series, if you ask, is going to be SCUSA most of the time. Maybe not in terms of the actual quality of the series, but just from a brand recognition standpoint. And we've seen Stars, we've seen USPKS in their own ways kind of carve out that brand identity. But between the value that Supernats kind of pushes into the series internally through the Pro Tour and what they've done in the past with tracks as well, you kind of have the most national feel. Furthermore, over the last 15 years, since the start of Pro Tour, there has been more track diversity for SCUSA than any other series in the U.S., whether it be back when they were competing against Rotax and Rotax Grand Nationals is the only thing I can think of that would really compete with that. But WK back in the day, USPKS, both at the start of the series up until now, as well as Stars, hasn't come close to regional diversity and thus the kind of cross-country footprint that SCUSA has. I think that is a strength in itself. The downside of SCUSA, though, and what I think that they've struggled with over recent years, is you look at how the series has been trending since really about 2016 to 17 or so. It's kind of gone back and forth between, is this still catering more towards the West Coast and kind of a west to east range of things, or is it going towards the East Coast? As the East Coast karting club base has sort of grown over the years and the West Coast karting clubs have kind of weakened, we've seen that footprint go more towards the East Coast. It's understandable because club numbers ultimately breed national numbers. But you look at this past year, Cincinnati, And you go to Orlando, you go to Cincinnati, you go to Newcastle. 3 East Coast tracks. Newcastle's been on the calendar for the last 10 years as Summer Nats. I don't mind that being the case per se, but I do think that if you're going to run Newcastle with a 3-race calendar with as much prestige and as much kind of cross-country footprint as SCUSA has, the second race can't be a Midwest race. Really, I think you want to focus on either Florida or Texas as one of the 3 races. You want to use the West Coast as a second race. If you want to run Newcastle as kind of the one like standalone third race as Summer Nats, it's understandable. But I think SCUSA right now is the one series that I see that can get away with a firm West Coast race. And it can rotate every year. That's how you keep people happy. I think contrary to popular belief, tracks like a MCC or Newcastle or even Trackhouse, it's not the end of the world, or K1, Centennial, all of these tracks. It's not the end of the world if you miss out on 1 year of contracts. You can work your way into having kind of a long-term club series with a short kind of rotating national calendar, right? And SCUSA has the leverage with Pro Tour to make it happen. I think they can make a West Coast race. They can go back to PKRA. They can do K1. They could even mess around with a kind of with more of a street circuit or a temporary circuit during the regular season. We saw them do that in 2014. I think they're a good series that could get away with trying that. So I guess to kind of build off the brand identity part of this, I think in the next 3 years, it's time for SCUSA to focus back towards the West Coast. I know we've gone to Utah a couple times, but it needs to be a bit more of a consistent approach. I think you focus in on kind of alternating the schedule between Texas and Florida as well. And ultimately, you continue to establish yourself as the most national series in the U.S. from a demographic basis. Even if the numbers may not be as strong, or maybe if the field quality is the same as USPKS or Stars, I think they have the West Coast base and the East Coast base tapped in. And as long as they go to the right tracks and continue to build off of the strong circuits like K1, like Enola as well, another track I think that SCUSA's gone to 3 or 4 times over the course of the Pro Tour history. Those are tracks we should be going to. And like you guys have both mentioned, the repetitiveness is not great, but I think in particular, SCUSA has the ability to go cross country and get away with it from a logistical standpoint more than pretty much any other series.
Yeah, I think ultimately it just has to make sense in the end to go out to the West and have another race out there to kind of do. I think that's it for me. And AMR night race. Is there even lights out there, Alex?
No, so it's funny that Chase mentions that because we talk
Bro,
about it quite
these
often at
kids.
the he mentioned that though, because at the club race we joke all the time that AMR needs to get lights so we can have a club, at least a club race under the
Yeah.
lights, because it gets just like it is for you, Kaleb. Our
Yeah.
club scene during the summer is like 100 degrees,
Mhm.
and so if we get some lights out there and get a night race going, that would be sick. And actually, that leads
Yeah.
to my next point that I was going to make. If we're going to keep bringing in the same tracks, then I get why we have to. Like they're staples, right? Like it's gonna be hard to not have a year of Newcastle or Trackhouse, MCC, those type of racetracks, especially with the new tracks coming in, K1, Centennial. If we're gonna continue to go to the Newcastles of the world, the Trackhouse, you name it, let's at least change the layouts. You know what I mean? Let's have some fun with it.
Layouts, lights.
That's
Let's mix it. Like I love MCC and I've told Sean this many times. I was like, dude, what is it gonna take to get some lights? Like imagine night racing at MCC. Like that would just be that's a whole topic for another day. And I don't want to go down that wormhole or whatever. But
But it's a good
yeah,
point to talk
yeah,
about. Just if we're gonna do that, Newcastle can handle it, right? And I
yeah,
know we talk about the Rotax layout. It's a layout that we've grown to know and love.
yeah.
I would love to see the ski jump come back, or let's do an oval. It could take it.
That's
An
Let's have some,
oval. Goodness
let's have
gracious.
some fun with it. I know Emory
I
has.
think an oval.
Yeah,
What
you
were
were
you
gonna
gonna
talk about the
say on
oval.
this?
You were gonna talk about the oval, weren't you?
Dude, I think the oval would be sick.
Yeah.
They
I'm
they
gonna
have
go to
a
bed if this continues any longer. I'm not saying you guys are, but I'm saying if you guys keep talking this nonsense, I'm out.
I mean, hey, look, maybe the oval's a bit too unfeasible.
Yes.
I think it'd be sick for a one-off.
there's
but
NASCAR for a reason, dude.
Let's at least use it for
Look.
like a money race on like a Friday.
Oh my god.
Dude,
Like
you could use a shootout race at some point at Newcastle using the oval. I've seen
100%.
rentals run the oval before. And regardless, so the super mile, the ski jump at Newcastle, it's got like that's a cool track layout. Newcastle, I've run it as well with a couple different variations back in the WKA days that I haven't seen since then. I'm like, hey, do I think it's a better layout? No, but it's a different layout. Like Trackhouse, I think it's unique because there's no good alternate layout, and I know I might catch some heat from that, but it's the
Okay.
truth.
Run it
okay,
backwards.
obviously, like the normal track house layout is the best layout, but I think OG money shootout race, the one that Pauly run,
Yeah.
that's the best shootout layout we've ever had, and we should run that at least once during a national race.
It's got to be a shootout layout, though. You can't fit more than about 20 carts on
Yeah.
that layout without
Yep.
it being a complete mess. Like,
Yep.
this is a wormhole that I don't want to get into on the Trackhouse side of things, but it's like there's certain tracks where the ideal layout has to be the one that you run national races on. I think MCC is debatable because MCC has kind of the legacy layout that I think also runs pretty well. I still want to see some sort of reverse trial and error with that track at some point, even if it's not the natural layout. But yeah, no, I think Alex's audio just decided to go kapoom.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think we do have to try different stuff at some point with different tracks. They've gotten, if they haven't announced the layout for USPKS yet, but if we run the shark fin layout at Newcastle again for the third time this year, I think it's a little bit disappointing.
Yeah.
And I hope that they just do either the normal layout or the super mile. And
yeah, we'll see.
Oh.
That it's all to come here shortly, and I'm sure your laptop died again, but I think
it's still running, but it's just it's gonna go.
we're
So,
cooked.
well,
yeah,
I think
it's been a good one and a long one.
it's been eventful. That's a word for it.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I think there was good discussion points talked here. And I hope like some of the series can kind of take what we're saying and maybe run with it or do what they want with it. It was obviously engaging. I see a lot of people in the comments mentioning a lot of racetracks.
Yeah.
And they agree with us, and that's what's good. Yeah, MCC backwards. That would be all. I think backwards in general is always it's rarely the wrong choice if you want to change it up really easily
Yeah.
without any work at all. Backwards is fun. We saw Trackhouse do it, and it was actually a blast. And most tracks
still
can't handle
never
it.
Look. Last thing I'll say here. I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but last year, TSRS had 2 races at Speed Sports. The last one was backwards. And I was like, I don't know how this is gonna race. So I drove it backwards. I'm telling you, the most fun I've had in my life was probably I like Speed Sports backwards more than I like it forwards, and I think that goes for a lot of tracks as well. MCC backwards would be insane as an unsafe, because the run through there is like goes straight to the other side of the track, the one of the cut throughs. So I think that's a no-go for MCC.
We'd have to put like some crazy like pillows through
It's
that
not
section.
gonna work. It's not gonna work. I'm negative. It's not gonna work.
Let's get Sean on. Let's get Sean on that. Sean can figure out a way.
Yeah, Sean. If there's a man for the job, it's Sean Bailiff, and he'll figure out how to make that track go backwards.
You'd have to run the legacy. If you're gonna do it backwards, you got to run the legacy layout, I would think.
Yeah, without the that would be sick actually. But that would be a crazy turn one either way.
No, turn one reverse with the full layout would be people would die. It'd be brutal. To be fair,
I would not say that, but okay.
Okay. Sorry, that was maybe the wrong word. Anyways,
that
to
was
be fair,
very wrong. That was not the word to use at all. But anyway,
people would figuratively not end well if they were to take turn one backwards at MCC. But I will say, Speed Sports, I think last year did show you can run a layout.
You were there.
Backwards.
You were there.
I was there.
I forget about that.
I did see a kid go flying. That was a little
Okay.
bit sketchy.
Good.
But as a whole, I think it raced really well. It's
Yeah.
kind of proof that you can run a track that maybe you wouldn't think is going to be good backwards, and
Yeah.
you can get away with it. And so I think
Yeah.
these are all things to take into consideration in the future. But I certainly think, look, there's a lot of options, a lot of creativity you can do with karting schedules. And I think with 3 series on the national front, with more one-off races coming, I think it's going to be very fun to see how series adapt these going forward.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I think this has been a long episode. We're gonna cut this short because I could tell the three of us probably getting a little bit tired here. It ran longer than I think.
I'm starting to get mad at you guys.
But yeah, no, I don't want Kaleb getting any more mad at us. I'm gonna start naming tracks that can go backwards all day long, and then Caleb's gonna start getting upset. So
Yeah.
this has been Casey Grid Talk Tuesday again. Thank you for joining our episode of chaos. I'd say of so many things going wrong, but also going right. I'd say we had some good discussions, which is always a
Hey,
good
round of
thing.
applause.
Yeah, round of applause for discussions. Good discussions were had. Interviews were talked, and internet was bad. But it's okay because the episode is now 2 hours, 13 minutes long. Thank you all for watching the show, and we'll catch you on the next one. See you guys.
See ya.